Hey everyone, welcome to my guide for the Merchant's Tale Advanced Darya, the Sea Maid, or as I like to call her, Mermaid Lady. With that being said, there's a couple things I want to go over before jumping into the mechanics. This is going to be in the perspective of two people. However, I will let you know what changes when you add a third and a fourth person. And there is a difference between adding that fourth person from the third person. Second, you are going to want to set up kind of like an anchoring and adjusting system for this fight. I will kind of explain what that means when we get to the mechanic, but just know there may be a point where somebody will have to adjust. These strategies were made on a blind run, which means we did not look at any guides, we did not look at any POVs, so these strats are made by me with the help of Serenity. There may be better strats out there, but I did try to keep uptime in mind for a lot of these things, and I will kind of show you what the snapshots are and what you can kind of abuse in these fights. But with that being said, let's begin. She's going to start off with an AoE just like in every fight in Final Fantasy. Just use your standard mitts for this. Feel free to face her north here because she will dart to the middle and lock to facing north. Why that is important is because you're going to want to look north and west for the next mechanic. So once she's locked in, feel free to move yourself to specifically this little plus sign. And when I mean plus sign, it's like this, but this specific one over here. The reason why is I call this the true divider line. And I will show you exactly what that means. So in normal, when she casts Familiar Call, she will only call the seahorses and the fays, and I believe they're always north. However, in advance, she's going to summon another set of sea creatures, the turtles and the crabs. The turtle and crabs are always together. The fays and the seahorses are always together. However, they might be north, or these guys might be west, but they will always be northwest. It doesn't really matter. Go to this line because it's always the true divider that separates the fae and the seahorse and the turtle and the crab, no matter what the iteration is. This will allow you to do what's called a 2 dodge instead of a 3 dodge that I have seen in other POVs. How the dodge is going to work, and really how this mechanic works, is she's going to sing a song and show you the symbols for each of the sea creatures. This means that the turtle's going to shoot his line first, and the crab's going to shoot their line first, the horse is then going to shoot their line, and the fae's going to shoot their line. How you want to do this easy dodge is look at the second sea creature and look at the fourth sea creature and go to the square that's relevant to this true divider line and start at that square. So we're looking for the crab and the fae. So here's the crab one. Want to go either to here, and just my camera kind of sucks here, and here's the fae. So it's going to be this square because again, fae, crab align perfectly with this square. Once you start at this square, you're going to dodge into the first line. All you need to do is cross this little blue line. Don't dodge into the second. It's not necessary. Then just dodge into the third. Easy movement that you can do while slide casting. Again, just need to dodge this little line. That is it. That's the mechanic. The next mechanic we pre-position, and this is when you'll start wanting to make an anchor and adjusting system. So you will want to start east and west or north and south. It is completely up to you. We decided to do east and west for this sunken treasure mechanic. So how this mechanic is going to work is she's going to summon an orb, and we call these life preservers, but they're donuts, an orb and 2 life preservers next to it. They will always be across from each other, which means that it can be east and west for us, which is the cringe pattern. However, it can be north and south. My recommendation post clear would be to swap yourself to where you're between 2 life preservers and not between an orb. I will talk about that later. This is perfectly fine kind of how it works though. So what's going to happen in this mechanic is the orbs and the life preservers, well, one orb and all the life preservers will crack at the same time. When they crack, that means that they are about to go off. The orb that cracks is the one you do not want to go to. The life preservers all crack at the same time. Don't worry about them. Then what's going to happen is she is going to sign always 2 players with like an orange marker on their head. That orange marker is a spread, and it is a massive spread. Both the spread people need to be in their own life preservers that is away from the cracked orb. So I'll play it out here just to show you what the cracked orb will be. In this case, it is my orb. So when you have 2 players that have that orange marker, one needs to be in this life preserver, one needs to be in this life preserver. I would not recommend YOLOing it, just seeing like who goes where, because the snapshot for this is not friendly, which I will show later. Make a priority system. So our priority system was that I owned the west side, Serenity owned the east side, and you would always go to your north life preserver if you could, because there is a pattern just like this where I need to go to her side. So she will always go north, that's her anchored position, and I will always adjust to her side on the south. Now, if she needed to come to my side, the rule is you are always anchored north to your side, so I would go north and she would go to the south one. Now, if this was flipped, so pretend the orbs are on A and C, the life preservers are always in the same spot. If it was in the case of that and the north one cracked, I would go here, Serenity would go here. When you introduce more players, you need to have somebody that is anchored to one side, anchored to the other side, and 2 people that adjust to them. What do I mean by that? Say if there was imaginary player number 3, imaginary player number 4, and I got the marker and imaginary player number 3 got the marker. I am anchored to this side. I always obey this side. I never swap. Again, unless it's like this weird cringe pattern. They will then adjust to me. It makes it easier, I think, if it spawns in this iteration to start then at north and south. But this works perfectly fine. Here are the markers. And boom, that's how big the spread is. So you really want to make sure you're in your own life preserver. If you are actively tanking the boss, this hurts. It does about 70k damage by itself on top of her autos. Once the AoEs go off, you will notice that this orb now begins to crack. So what that means is once this goes off, that's the snapshot, by the way, is when you get hit, you need to immediately book it. How big is this AoE? Well, it's about to the C marker, pretty much that these markers are what you kind of want to dodge. See, as long as you're dodging the C marker, as long as you're dodging the A marker, that's good enough. The next is going to be a tank buster. This doesn't really hit that hard, but just keep in mind it is a line buster, so it will hit anyone behind or in front of the person taking the buster. Would not recommend hitting your friends with it, but feel free if you're in that mood too. The next mechanic is what I like to call a restraining order mechanic, which is kind of a callback to the old Alexander days. How it's going to work when you have 2 players is it's going to pick both of you, obviously, and it's going to give you restraining order, which means that you need to stay far apart for the duration of the mechanic. The mechanic lasts for about 25 seconds. So for that time, it is not like a tether where you could just break it and it goes away. You have to obey the restraining order during that time. If there is a third player, it will still only target 2 people. You just need to have that person adjust. So again, it's one of those anchoring systems, adjust systems, where I will always go north, Serenity will always go south. If there was a third person, they would have to adjust to whoever they're tethered to. So if they got tethered to Serenity, Serenity is always south, so they would have to adjust north. If they were tethered to me, they would have to go south because I am always anchored north. When you add a 4th player, it will restraining order all of you, but in pairs. So meaning that imaginary player number 4, imaginary player number 3. Imaginary player number 3 and me would be tethered together, and imaginary player 4 and Serenity will be tethered together. You can use that same anchoring system, so meaning that if I got tethered with somebody, they know to go south because I'm always north. If Serenity and I got tethered and 3 and 4 got tethered, they should still follow their priority of 3 wouldn't go to north unless like I'm there and they were tethered to me. However, it does not really change the essence of the mechanic. You can start far apart. It is not a tether mechanic. Again, it's just a restraining order. I will talk about these little squares in a second here. I will kind of show you how the restraining order works. It's called sea shackles. You might get fooled because it is red and you think, oh no, that's bad. It just needs a second to lock in. Boom. That's how you know that you did the restraining order correctly. And again, remember, it lasts for like 23 more seconds. So we have to obey this for 23 seconds. What's going to happen next is she's going to make a tidal wave on either the east or west. And the tidal wave will knock you back 3 squares. So how do you know where to go? You're going to go to the row that has a little square, like one of the C squares, at the end of them. So not this one, not this one, not this one, but this one and this one. Because again, it knocks you back 3. So like pretend the wave is over here. 1, 2, 3. You stepped in bad. Say it's over here. 1, 2, 3. You stepped in bad. Now, this is a kind of an abuse mechanic because the knockback isn't really fast and it can be knockback immune. However, I would not recommend knockback immuning the first one. I would do it to the second one, which I will show you later. Also, you can use a gap closer to stop yourself from going, which if you want uptime, that's pretty much what you got to do. So the knockback is coming from Bravo here. So it's going to knock us back 3 tiles. So Serenity's at a perfect spot. 1, 2, 3, safe. Normally I would get knocked back 1, 2, 3, safe, but a gap close. The other knockback will spawn at either south or north. Once you can actually hear this too, but once you see and or hear the geyser coming out of the water, hit your knockback immune. If you are playing warrior and you didn't drift your 1 minute, IR should be up here. That gives you unstoppable. So you don't need to hit arm's length, but I hit it here anyway. And it will be back up in time when this mechanic happens. Again, this is when restraining order goes away and she does an AoE. The next mechanic is called swimming in the air. It's very similar to normal, however, there is going to be a little bit of a difference, and there is a difference when you add a 3rd and a 4th player. So how this mechanic is going to work is she's going to swim around the arena in each of the cardinals and intercardinals. She's going to leave this little like blue crystal mark, and what this is essentially it's an AoE. She's always going to drop 1 in the middle. However, she is going to skip 2 areas. When you have 2 players, what's going to happen is both of you are going to get this marker on top of your head. So you get the spread marker. The way we solve this is with 2 players. I always had Serenity go to the first safe spot. From our testing, the safe spots were either diagonal of each other or skipped 1 of each other. So it could be at like 2, skip 1, 3. Or it could be 2 and then 4, which is over there. So A is bad, 2 is bad, B is bad, 3 is safe. Notice that she didn't drop 1 there. So I have the Serenity go to the first safe spot. So she goes there. And then 4 will be the next safe spot. You can greet about a GCD. It's kind of a big punishment. I wouldn't recommend it. You'll lose probably like half a GCD as she works her way up to you, but these are big spread markers, so just keep that in mind. When you have a 3rd and a 4th person, the mechanic really changes when you add another person. It's not really that much different when you add that 4th from the 3rd. What's going to happen is when you introduce more people, instead of everyone getting a spread because there's still only 2 safe spots, 1 person's going to get a spread, 1 person's going to get a stack, and then the other people are not going to have anything. the stack and the nothing people are going to be together, and they're going to take that stack together. The spread person is going to be by themselves. The way we solved it is we had the spread person go to the first safe spot. So it was no longer Serenity always goes to the first safe spot. It was the spread person. So if Serenity got the spread, she would go to the first safe spot. Me and my imaginary friends over here would go to 4 with the stack together. After this mechanic, I believe, is the second restraining order mechanic. So again, you can start far apart if it's 2 people, but just if you're adding players, keep in mind it's not guaranteed of who gets shackled to one another. So how this is going to work is she's not adding a knockback. Instead, she's adding in exo waves, if you're familiar with those. If not, it's kind of similar to the latest Alliance raid where it's the lines that follow where the arrows are going. So it's going to explode here, and then here, and then here, and then here, and then here. And there's going to be 2 of them. One will always spawn north or south, the other will spawn east or west, but they will always be kind of like next to each other like this or connected. That connection is very important because it reveals an easy dodge I like to show. But I'll explain that in a second. She's also going to cut half your area. So it's just to kind of prevent you from doing a guaranteed dodge every time. You just kind of follow the quadrant that isn't getting cut by her. So Serenity is going to go over here. I'm going to go over here. Now, there is an intersection here with the wave dodges. I like to do what's called the one dodge, which is you dodge into this intersection over here. This intersection does move every time it goes off, so it's going to start here, then it's going to go here, then it's going to go here. I do kind of a quick dodge here. I should have waited. But see, I walk right into it. The snapshot for this mechanic is when the waves go off. That's when it registers if somebody was in it or not. Don't wait for the animation to finish. As soon as those arrows go away, they snapshot it. As soon as you see the water, you are good to walk in. So the water goes in, I can walk back into it. Serenity does the other dodge, which is completely fine. If you don't want to do the intersection or it's coming at you late, you can do what's called a 2 dodge, which is you dodge one while still avoiding the other, and then you walk into the other one. So see how she moves, but she's still back because she doesn't want to get hit by this wave. She dodges into this and then moves up there. And we are still abiding by the restraining order. It is pretty lenient. I would say the second to last mechanic is going to be alluring order. This changes in not how it works, but in difficulty, I think, when you add extra players. So what's going to happen is you are going to get a force march. The force marches will be different. Sometimes they can be the same. In this case, it is different. So I am going to force march in front of me as the arrow says at my debuff. Serenity is going to march to her left. Keep in mind, you have control of what your left is or what the in front of you is. All it's saying is that you're going to march in this direction relevant to you. You can change how you're facing to say where you want to march. For some reason, they also decided to add 3 random puddle drops called Aqua Ball. So it's going to drop just 3 puddles. So when you have 2 players, what we did is I assigned Serenities to stay south and myself to stay north. Now, why do we have to separate? It's because she gives you those giant AoEs again. Those markers that we saw in the life preservers, they are massive AoEs. When you add extra players, everybody gets a mark, so it makes it a little more difficult. The way we did it when we had multiple players is that we had each person on essentially a quadrant, and they will always go, I mean, you could choose clockwise or counterclockwise, but essentially you're ending up in a different quadrant than you were, essentially the one next to you. And pretty much everyone did that, and they turn their bodies appropriately to go to that next quadrant. If in the case that this is one of those mechanics where things can get messy, if you are a tank, right after the force march is over, spam your invuln, just in case things get messy. So again, you drop those 3 puddles. That's when they go off. And then this is the final mechanic after her tank buster until she starts repeating things. It is familiar call 2. Again, we always start at this perfect divider, this same spot as last time. Even if the variation's a little different, this will always be a divider between the sea creatures. What's going to happen with this one is you treat the dodges the same. However, she's going to do an out, then an in, or an in, then an out. The dodges can be a little messy if you just want to do regular dodges and just get hit by the get out and kind of just, again, stay doing normal dodges. That's perfectly fine. You get a vuln stack, but it won't kill you. Just don't get hit by 2 things. So we're going to Fae and Crab. So Fae and Crab is this middle area. So the reason why it's okay, even if it's a get out, is the line snapshots first. Then you can walk into it and you can avoid this. It goes off at the same time as the second line. But remember, we ignore the second line. That's the third line. Walk into the third line. And that's it. After that, she will start repeating mechanics. What I want to show you too is kind of how fast the snapshotting is for Sunken Treasure. Unfortunately, it is the same pattern. I wish I could show you what the other one would be, but in this case, Serenity had to go to me. She was casting during this time, and unfortunately, it was just a bad snap. But you do not want to kind of hesitate here, because as soon as the marker disappeared, like right there, that's when the snapshot is. So even though it looks like she made it, she did not. You don't want to hesitate, so you want to try to have a system before you go in there. Again, this is kind of a very recoverable fight. So if things do screw up, I highly recommend bringing a raise. One thing I want to talk about with variant raise that is kind of funny, it is counted as a regular spell. So as a tank, if you are bringing a paladin, for example, and you're in your 1 minute with Requi cast, Requi does actually make the resurrection instant, and obviously it does take one of your Requi charges. As a black mage, you can triple cast your res if need be. It's treated as a regular spell, so you can abuse that with some classes. After that, it's again just a repeat of mechanics. One thing I will say is if somebody is dead by the time she's doing sea shackles and there's not 2 players, so let's just say there's only 1 player, it won't go off. Like this, it just won't happen. Same if like you brought 4 players but 1 is dead, then there will only be 1 restraining order. But with that being said, that pretty much covers the entirety of this fight. I think that Mermaid Lady is probably the hardest of the fights because there's just a couple adjustings that you need to do. But if you got that down, it's really not that bad. But with that being said, I will see you guys in the next one.